The previous video gave you a narrative about Gorr, his misery, his suffering, why he hated all the gods and why he set out on a journey to butcher the asses of all gods. Well, this time it's not about his suffering, it's more about his vengeance and how he discovered new ways of fucking the asses, the careless asses of gods and eventually Thor's as he mastered the power of all black. This story is actually divided in three parts: the young Thor from the past, the mature Thor from the present, and the old Thor from the future, the all-father Thor. I'll give you the story in such a way that it switches between the story of these three Thors, and towards the end all these three stories merge into their final battle. And trust me when I say this, if you think it can't get any darker than this or the previous story, trust me, it fucking can, and it does. The story starts from young Thor that was enjoying his stay at some place in Iceland, fucking some bitches and drinking ale after fulfilling the prayers of the people that lived there. The party gets disturbed by a loud cry of a girl that claims that she saw a devil in the waters. After closely examining the waters, Thor and the villagers see brutally butchered human body pieces flowing around in the waters. After picking up a butchered face, Thor reveals that these butchered pieces are actually of gods. And what was terrifying about that is that the butchered god face had fear in his eyes. It was the first time when young Thor witnessed the butchering of gods. The second encounter happens when Thor was on a journey to fight some gods, but when he actually reaches the arena, he realizes that all the gods have already been butchered and the sky even smelled of God's blood. It was the first time when Thor actually encounters Gorr and they both go into a fierce battle. And as Thor was about to brutally lose, he summons lightning that strikes Gorr, which separates Thor from Gorr, giving Thor some time to recover, more like giving him some time to fucking escape like a pussy he was. Even though his wounds were not healed properly, young Thor sets out on a journey to fight Gorr, where Gorr was waiting for him in a cave. But the plan goes sideways as Gorr captures him and tortures him for days to find the way to Asgard. This encounter of Thor made him realize what fear and horror actually feels like. Thor was on the brink of death just when the Viking army arrived and fought a bloody battle with Gorr, resulting in rescuing of Thor, and also Thor manages to chop one of the hands of Gorr. After this fight, young Thor thought that Gorr is dead, but Gorr also realized that he needs to up his fucking pace and stop acting like a damn bitch, because killing gods one by one will take a long ass time. Now let's shift the story towards old Thor, who is just sitting on his throne with no one around, as nothing is left of Asgard at all the people are gone. Old Thor was lonely and depressed, and on top of that, the thought of defeat that hurt his pride ruled his mind. But he stands again with whatever might or strength he had left to fight his final battle. At least that's what he fucking thought. Against the army of gods surrounding Asgard, he fights with the army alone for days, but even that goes to vain. He even cried the word of death as he thought he was going to fucking die. He was also remembering his miserable fucking past. I mean, whatever was left of it in his brain. The army of God takes him back to his throne, sits his ass down and asks him for a fight again. You can imagine the humiliation, hopelessness and fucking misery of Thor at that point. He was literally fucked by just the army, those little goop looking pieces of shit. They were not letting him die, but they were also not letting him live. What surrounded him at that point was hell of Gorr. Coming to the present Thor or the mature Thor, he was summoned by a little girl on a planet named Indigar. After resolving their rain problem, he asked them why didn't they summon their own gods, and he was completely shocked by their answer. They told him that there were no gods on that planet. Not believing their answer, he sets out on a journey to find the gods of that planet, where he encounters a building that fucking kills his mind. All the gods, their family, their ancestors were brutally butchered, hanged and were rotting in that building. Terror was still intact on their faces even after they fucking died. This makes Thor remember the same horror that he faced when he was young, and he comes to a conclusion that this can only be done by one man, which I don't know if he's actually a man, but yeah, Gorr. The present Thor sets on a journey to find Gorr and kill him once and for all, and I know, let the bitch believe whatever he fucking wants to right now, okay? Let's focus on the story. This slowly leads him to a place called Kronox, the place of infinity, where the gods use their holy drops of blood to actually travel back in time. Gorr shows up there, kills every single one of those motherfuckers except one to perform the ritual, collects all the dead god blood in a pool, travels back in time to kill the first ever elder god. He rips his fucking heart out, travels back to future where he finds Thor sitting scratching his balls. They both again go into a fierce battle, but Gorr again flees to the future, but this time Thor follows him. The present Thor encounters the future Thor as he enters the future. On the other hand, Gorr was building a god killing bomb, and the irony about that bomb, that it was being built by the gods themselves that were enslaved by Gorr. He even traveled to the past to bring the past Thor and enslave him as well. The young Thor, who was still in his fucking puberty, refuses to walk and throws racial slurs at Gorr. Well, not technically racial slurs, but you get the point. Till he was interrupted by two little girls who tells him that every single fucking time he commits a hate crime against Gorr, Gorr kills a god and hangs him on the tree. So you better take this advice and shut your fucking mouth and get your ass back to work. It was revealed that those girls were none other than Thor's granddaughters, which were also enslaved by Gorr. Well, leading to the conclusion of the story, the young Thor somehow manages to escape the prison and reunite with rest of the Thors, and then they plan their final battle battle against Gorr. As the final battle begins, for the first fucking time in thousands of years, Gorr realizes what fear is, till he orders to kill every single one of those enslaved motherfuckers too. And technically when the gods die, it gives power to all black and eventually Gorr. The three Thors fight with Gorr with all their might, and it seems when you read the comic that the Thors were gonna win that battle, but yet again Gorr stands victorious. While all three Thors lie in front of him with their cheeks widespread, almost fucking dead. Pathetic. As the countdown begins on Gorr's bomb, his wife becomes overjoyed and declares Gorr as her god, which makes Gorr angry and raged, and he fucking kills his own wife because that's the only word he hated the most in this entire damn world. What a fucking dumb bitch she was. Seeing his mother dead, Gorr's son's question to himself, is it really my father Gorr? Then he helps the young Thor, saves his life, and somehow the rest of the Thors survives and thus begin their battle of survival against Gorr yet again. But the bomb was already active, so the present Thor starts banging his hammer against it, and the Thor bangs two Jonathans against each other, creating a shockwave. It's just fucking beautiful and comic. I highly recommend you to read that frame at least. At that time, the God Killer bomb that was destined to kill all the gods made from God's blood itself exploded. But the explosion was clinging to Thor's body, he was absorbing it all. Then all the gods, dead or alive, prayed for Thor as he became the all-black Thor. Gorr's weapon, Gorr's army, Gorr's son, which was made by himself, all vanished. And Gorr returned to his old self, and then his head was chopped off by young Thor, ending Gorr's saga. Well, technically Gorr was also resurrected in future, but yeah, that's not the point that I'm trying to make. The whole fucking story that I just told you was to give you a gist of how badass and dreadful Gorr the God Butcher was and still is. The man made a fucking city of god slaves. Cut him some slack. Now go ahead and revisit the trailer of Thor Love and Thunder. Do you really think this fucking story that I just told you can be completed in 2 hours? And if you think it can be, then all the fucking best, you dumbasses. See you in the next one.